If it's fun you desire, it's fun you're going to get at Flatstick Pub. It doesn't matter what the occasion is, whether it's date night, guys night, ladies night, or large group event, Flatstick Pub's got you covered. They have 6 great locations across the Pacific Northwest, from Pioneer Square to Kirkland, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. All locations offer the best pub experience in Washington. 2 rules at Flatstick Pub: drink local and have fun. Pretty simple. So if you like to have fun, love local beer, and great tasting food, make Flatstick Pub your next spot. Visit them at flatstickpub.com. Here he is with us every single Tuesday, John Canzano from johncanzano.com. You can also listen to his radio show down there in Portland, 750 The Game, 3 to 6 p.m. every single day. He's with us on Tuesdays, brought to you by Flatstick Pub, Cougar-owned and operated, 6 great locations across the state of Washington. Visit them at flatstickpub.com. How's the voice this week?
How do I sound, man? I sound better? I sound a little bit better than last week?
You do sound a little bit better. It was a tough one for you. I listened to the Canzano and Wilner podcast. That was really when it was at its height of the pain of you trying to get out questions to the great Rick Neuheisel.
Yeah.
But you've battled through and you're here with us.
Yeah. Hey, man, when you are doing the thing that gets you, it's the cumulative effect. Like, I could tell on like the Monday that my voice was scratchy and I was going, oh crap, like what am I going to be like on Thursday? And you know what? Your voice goes and you're doing 3 hours of radio. Good luck to you. Yeah. But you let the callers carry you, man. You let the callers carry you.
You still take callers. That you get callers. Huh? That is something that is a long gone art in sports talk radio. Good for you.
People told me when I first started, because I wasn't a radio guy, Puck. Like I'm a print guy who, fell into radio, and then they put a microphone in front of me. But people told me at the beginning, don't take calls. They ruin the show. I disagree. I grew up listening to sports radio. Calls. I grew up with the radio underneath my pillow, listening to the post-game show in KMBR in San Francisco, and Sports Phone 68 was the show. If you use the callers speak for somebody out there. Your audience, people are tweeting at you. People are dropping into the DMs. People are leaving comments in the comment section. You can't ignore that. That's your audience. And so, yeah, some of the callers are nuts, but they speak for a faction of the audience that's nuts.
We've got to figure out. I think I can, if I send this link out to the audience, people can jump in. I got to figure some way out to incorporate people jumping in. Because we have like a chat and all that. That's not the same thing.
We should do Q&A. Do a Q&A episode.
Yeah, I enjoy phone. I did enjoy phone calls because you get characters too. That's the other thing I always loved about it. Oh yeah, you get characters who then become a part of the show.
We got a guy named Mike.
Mike, where's Mike from?
Mike's in Portland.
Yeah,
he's a ladies' man.
Yeah, sure.
He always starts by saying, "Let me tell you something, John," and then he goes in. I imagine he's in a silk robe while he's doing the thing, and he talks about what a ladies' man he is while he's giving his sports take, and
damn right,
it works for him. It works for him.
I enjoy. Let me start first with the podcast and the show you guys did with Rick Neuheisel. Yeah. You and John Wilner, San Jose Mercury News. If you don't know, Canzano and Wilner have a podcast. I know you know that. And you can find it wherever you find all the podcasts in the world, YouTube, and then every podcast platform. I love Rick Neuheisel. I could listen to Rick Neuheisel talk all the time. I just think he's good for the sport. I think he's got great perspective on the sport. I think that college football needs to carve out a bigger role for Rick Neuheisel. To me, the talents of Rick Neuheisel, unfortunately, are being wasted on CBS.
Yeah.
Like he needs a bigger voice. He hinted at with you guys, and I found it interesting. Yeah, maybe I'd dip my toes back into coaching, but it'd have to be at a place where, like, NIL doesn't dominate the sport or doesn't dominate the school.
Mm-hmm.
What did you take away from that? Do you think he wants to venture back into that, or what role could be carved out for him in this new world of college football that he could oversee, govern, or just have a much bigger voice than he has now?
When I was a kid, my dad played pro baseball and he was retired, and I can remember my dad in his 40s and his 50s. I'd ask him, "Do you still have dreams about baseball?" And he kind of lit up and go, "Yeah, I dream like all the time about, a game situation, ball hit here." I asked Rick Neuheisel that because I could tell that as he was talking about the job opportunities at UCLA and Oregon State, we're talking about open jobs. And I said, "Do you still think about coaching?" And he said every day he thinks about coaching. I do think that, it would take a really unique situation. But what Bill Belichick is doing at North Carolina with this succession plan to hand the baton off to his kid would be something that Rick Neuheisel might be into. And again, a place where NIL doesn't matter as much. I started thinking, obviously, group of 5 schools or maybe even a Big Sky Conference school. Portland State's looking for a coach. I'm sure Bruce Barnum, he's got one more game, but I think Portland State's going to be on the market. But I also think, like, if you look at Oregon State, you look at Colorado State, could there be a place for Rick Neuheisel and then his son Jerry as the heir apparent, where Rick is sort of the figurehead and CEO and is, the other people have to do the work? Yeah, I would take a flyer on that if I was a school that was a little lost and in between the cracks. And, otherwise you're hiring somebody who's never done the job, never been a CEO, never been a head coach. If you're not doing it, if you're not going with somebody like Neuheisel.
Do we know if maybe Oregon State has made some back channel calls to him?
I don't think so at this point. I'll have more on that today. I'm working real hard on Oregon State and Colorado State. I do know this. Colorado State has tried to reach out to Jason Eck, the New Mexico coach. And, his agent is sort of running interference there. I don't believe he's interested in taking another job that's not a Power 4 job. I think he's going to stay at New Mexico. But, you're starting to see movement with these searches. Oregon State, I do know, is meeting with some people today and tomorrow and this week. Their committee is, at least, and starting to really drill down and vet these candidates. I think these jobs are going to get filled first week of December. I sort of had December 10th circled on my calendar as kind of the deadline for Oregon State, given where the portal is. But I think there's still a little bit of wait and see, Puck, with nobody quite knows who's on the market yet. What's Lane Kiffin doing? Goodness. What is happening in other places? And then there'll be some domino effect that trickles down to kind of the Oregon State level. But, I don't think they've back-channeled to Neuheisel at this point. Okay. They should. That's somebody I would want to talk with, as long as you're talking to Nick Rolovich and, Jamarcus Shepard and other people like that.
It feels like Shepard has been the name that a lot of people down there want. Young, he's got ties to Northwest, spent some time at Washington, spent time at Washington State under Mike Leach. So what's the push there for Jamarcus Shepard? Because it comes on the heels of where it felt like there was a lot of momentum for Paul Chryst, the former Wisconsin guy. I mean, I think there was even reports saying Chryst was going to get the job, but that seems to kind of disappear. What about Jamarcus Shepard and the interest on both sides for taking over at Oregon State?
The interesting thing with these searches is you figure out pretty quickly who's talking to people who are actually in the room and who's just throwing stuff against the wall. Like, Oregon State has not yet talked with Shepard officially, formally. One member of the committee's talked with Shepard, and I know that Shepard wants the job and is interested in the job, and he'd love to get an interview. I think he will get an interview. But Paul Chryst, he interviewed for the job last time when it went to Trent Bray. I think Oregon State has reached back out to him, has him on kind of the short list because he's a guy they'd want to talk with. But I see Chryst as more of a fallback option. He's been out of the game here for like a year. I think Shepard is interesting, but the questions I have about Jamarcus Shepard are the same ones that existed around Trent Bray. And you usually see, programs that will course correct, right? The big knock on Trent Bray was he wasn't a CEO. He had never been a coach. It was a disaster. He couldn't do interviews. He wasn't great with donors and boosters. He didn't do the CEO stuff. I think it's really important when Shepard interviews that he comes into that room prepared to act and look and present himself as very much a CEO who has learned something from Kalen DeBoer, who has learned something from Mike Leach, who has seen winning at the highest levels in the SEC and at Washington, and has that and brings that into the room with him. Because if he comes in there as, hey, I've never been a head coach before, I can learn the CEO stuff, Oregon State's they're scarred by what just happened. So I think the Paul Chryst thing is interesting because he's been a head coach. And so I think they go, okay, let's see what he presents like in an interview setting. I think Nick Rolovich is someone that they want to talk with as well. Rolo hasn't had the success that some of these other coaches have had. He's played about 500 ball in his 2 stints at Hawaii and Washington State. But I think Rolo's hungry and dangerous. And there's an element to that at Oregon State that I think would be very attractive. Like he kind of lines up with like, hey, what's good for Rolo is good for Oregon State, and a little bit dicey, but dangerous. And so I think I think they'd look at him. I think there are some other people involved in this. I'll have more on this later today at johncanzano.com, but the committee's really starting to do the preliminary work, actual talking with candidates this week. The stuff that has been reported and out there, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's, the people in the room. I'm talking to the people in the room.
Okay. A lot of baggage with Rolovich. I think there's no doubt that he can coach. And I think, and he's a very, I know you've probably talked to him before. He's a great interview. Like he's just fun and he's a good guy. He's got a great personality and he's very good on the field. It is the off the field stuff. And again, this isn't just about what happened with COVID. What happened after COVID was a deep dive into his social media history.
Yeah.
And that got really weird and concerning and things being brought up in there that were disturbing, like real disturbing. And I wonder, it's not just about not doing the mask mandate. It is about some beliefs in there that, I don't know, you got to find a school that doesn't care about that or what have you. But that to me is the scariest thing about hiring and dipping your toes into Nick Rolovich.
I think the interesting thing is, whoever guided him to Cal did a really smart thing, because his beliefs and the masking and everything that, you look at with Rolo flew in the face of the culture of Berkeley, right? Yeah, he's on Telegraph Avenue, walking down Telegraph Avenue where they're blowing bubbles and patchouli oils in the air. And so you got Rolo in that environment, and the success that Cal has had this season can't be ignored. They've had some success. The win over Louisville a couple of weeks ago was a big win for both Justin Wilcox and Rolo. Now, I was told Oregon State was very interested in talking to Justin Wilcox potentially if Cal was ready to make a change there, because I think Oregon State viewed him as, he's homegrown, Junction City. He's an Oregonian, culture-wise. He's been a head coach. I think there was a lot of that would appeal to Oregon State. But when they beat Louisville, I think all of a sudden I went, well, I guess Wilcox off the table maybe, unless he wants to reset the clock and he's eager to kind of get out of Berkeley and do something new and wants to be viewed as it was his choice. Because I think it's a matter of time for Wilcox at Cal when, as soon as he wins 6 or 7 games one of these years, they're going to probably change directions. Yeah. But Rolo then becomes someone you want to talk with. I wouldn't put him at the top of the list, but I find him interesting because there's nothing like motivation, Puck. I mean, this is like getting a star player who's in a contract year with Rolo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and listen, and you give him another opportunity. This is Mike Leach at Washington State. Yeah, it's a second chance. You don't got to pay him as much, and he knows he's got to walk a fine line because this is probably his last chance to ever be a head coach in college football again. We have not talked since the Pac-12 came out with their final, I guess, arm of their TV deal, the USA Network. Games will be played in between reruns of Suits. So the USA Network, the final piece, is that good enough for this conference?
I think it is. And I've talked to a number of athletic directors in the conference. I was down in San Diego last Saturday for San Diego State, Boise State. Got a chance to talk with both ADs, San Diego State and Boise State, and really drilled down on it. Now, the first thing that jumped out at me is like, hey, there was no dollars announced. Nobody's leaking the money here, which tells you it's not game-changing money. Mm-hmm. But I think we knew all along that this wasn't about money for the Pac-12. If they could get money, they would have got money. They would have paraded it out, said, look at the best deal we got. No, it's about distribution. They wanted to be in as many households as they could possibly be in. You get 70 million households with USA Network. So now you have big CBS, 100% of households. You've got the CW, 100% of households. And you've got USA Network, 70 million households. You are everywhere. The viewing habits of the public have changed. And so we joke about Buffy the Vampire Slayer on CW and USA Network. I don't think it matters as much. When you've got YouTube TV or you've got Hulu, you're just clicking on the game. Yeah. You're playing the game. So they're getting that distribution. They're also bringing in Pac-12 enterprises to produce like 150 events a year. There's money in that. I suspect it's going to be baked into the deal. We're going to get, the announcement of the media rights deal. It's going to be inflated a little bit because they're going to include the production profit that they're making with Pac-12 enterprises in that deal. I fully expect that's going to happen. The other thing is no ESPN and no Fox. I worry, will they be talked about? You're going to watch this college football playoff ranking show. You're going to hear the pandering for the SEC, how, a 3-loss team in the SEC deserves to be in the playoff. Oh, this is so great. The ESPN's not going to talk about Oregon other than announcing where Oregon is in the rankings. They're not going to talk about the Ducks. They're not going to prop them up. They're going to talk about their SEC partners because they are in true partnership with the SEC. So if you don't have that and you're the Pac-12, do you lose the glow? Well, I start talking to all these ADs and I go, wouldn't it be great if you had ESPN as just, a part of this deal? And, if you can get ESPN to care about you, that's a big deal. And they said, what makes you think ESPN cared about us before?
Yeah.
They didn't care about the Pac-12 before. So the Pac-12 went with partners who were going to prioritize them. Think about this. The CW and USA Network in particular, they are going to be the most important thing on those channels when it comes to sports programming. And it'll be made the biggest deal. And I think that will matter to the Pac-12 in the end. Now, there's another piece to this deal. It's piece number 4. It's the fourth leg. It is the Olympic sports. I all along had thought ESPN Plus, right? You put it on the pay-per-view offering of ESPN. And I thought they'll just put it behind the paywall on ESPN. I'm now leaning, Puck, towards something very different. I sort of think Pac-12 Enterprises is going to produce the Olympic content. I think that Pac-12 is going to put it on their own app or maybe behind their own website paywall. I think they're going to try to monetize it themselves. I think they're going to lean into the United States Olympic Committee and go, hey, we're an Olympic development conference. Forget what everybody else in the country is doing. And I kind of think they're going to try to do something a little different there. Now, I asked somebody, could you go back to Apple and try to put the Olympic sports on Apple? There doesn't seem to be an appetite from Apple to buy just the Olympic sports. Apple wants it all, right? And so I just kind of think they're going to maybe give the middle finger to ESPN and Fox and go, we don't need you guys. You weren't there for us when the conference imploded. We're going to do it our damn self. Keep an eye on that.
Okay. What did you learn from your trip down to San Diego State other than that's where you want to move?
Yeah, it was raining, man. It was like raining. The people in Southern California were freaking out. They're soft. Those SoCal people are soft. They had their umbrellas out. They had their ponchos on. It was barely misting. Oof. I'm walking around in a sweater. They're all jacketed up. Like, look, it's interesting because Boise State was playing at San Diego State. Now, Boise State, when they walk in the stadium, there's a culture that walks in with Boise State. You can feel it when you're in the stadium. When your team is playing Boise State, man, you look around, you're like, man, you can just feel the fan base. You can feel it. I was at the team hotel for Boise State. Their fans are there. Their donors are there. Their president's there. Their AD's there. They're all shaking hands and slapping backs in the lobby. There's a culture of Boise State. I, for the first time, felt culture at San Diego State. They've got money. They're going to spend at the top of the conference. They're not filling Snapdragon Stadium like they should. They're fighting some fan apathy there in Southern California that's real. But I was down in the area between the locker room and the playing field right before the game started, and their diehard donors and fans are all down there to kind of watch the team walk through. They have this cool walk-through area where they're buying concessions and they're eating and they're drinking. Got a bar in there. And then the players and the team will actually walk through the area. And they were 10 or 12 deep down there watching it walk through. There's just a feel that Sean Lewis has created a winning program, and the people who are there are buying into it. Now, they need to get more people there. They only had about 7,500 season tickets sold this season. They're a good team. They're on the cusp of being a playoff team. I think it's really important that San Diego State keeps Sean Lewis for one more year. He's done a really good job. They need that momentum. You do not want to be in the position Oregon State's in where you're starting over, we're building a program, first year of the conference. San Diego State could be a little bit of a tentpole in this conference, Puck. They're dangerous.
Yeah. The Big Ten equity deal appears to be on life support, certainly pushed on pause. Obviously, it's been reported Michigan and USC have pushed back on that. So it appears that it's dead for now, maybe revisited down the road. I found this interesting. Again, I'm just going to read what has been reported. A guy by the name of Tony Paul, Detroit News, reported that, hey, when this proposed equity deal came out, it would have paid Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State $190 million. And then tier 2 was Oregon and USC at $155 million. And then the quote of the year, everyone else was $110. But in that, there was a someone associated with one of those schools that in there with everyone else said, God, we're in there with Rutgers. That was the line of the whole thing. And I wonder, so if Washington and these other schools is in that third tier, if this is correct and accurate, and we don't know that, what is the response from that school and that athletic department?
Well, you're going to get few opportunities in life for somebody to hold a mirror up and let you see where you really stand. This is one of them for Washington. The Washington fans love their program. They support it. The bottom line, the dollars are there. There's great revenue, great support. You go to Husky Stadium, you see it everywhere. Everyone feels like their program's the most important thing in the world. But when you line it up and you ask the private equity people or the TV partners to sort of assign value to you, you get a mirror held up for you. And that mirror is telling Washington it's not a second tier, it's a third tier program with everyone else, lumped in with everyone else. Now, I'd say Washington's at the top of that tier, at or near the top, and probably one of the likely candidates to be saying, God, we're in here with Rutgers. But I ultimately go back to Washington. I say, what did you think you were going to be in the Big Ten? Did you think you were going to play it on Big Noon and kick off and win the conference every year? You're not on that tier right now. The country does not view Washington football as a top tier Big Ten program. You've got to, you can't whine and bellyache. You got to show them the baby. Oregon's shown them the baby, right? And still Oregon's not with, the top tier teams. And so it's the big brands in the Big Ten that are always going to get the money. And I think you had to know that when you were signing on to go do it. I think people understand that Washington and Oregon and USC and UCLA did what was best for themselves. But in the end, it was the LA TV market. It was the brand of Oregon. And then it's Michigan and Ohio State at the top of that conference. And I just don't know why anybody in that conference would sign that kind of lopsided agreement.
Right.
If you're not getting the same amount of money, what are we doing here? Because look, you were just talking about the Mariners and no salary cap in baseball. You know how tight the margins are for the teams that can't spend. You can't afford an injury to a key pitcher. You can't afford to have a guy have a bad year. You need to have somebody step up and have a surprise season. That's the position that Washington and Illinois and Minnesota find themselves in. They need to retain and they need to get surprise performances, and they can't have injuries because they don't have the depth, they don't have the money, and they're not Oregon, they're not Ohio State, they're not Michigan.
Vegas thinks Oregon is going to wipe the field with USC on Saturday, where College Game Day is 12:30 kickoff on CBS. Ducks are favored by 9.5. Do you think it will be a close game, John Canzano?
No. Oregon's going to win by double digits. Oregon will cover that 9.5. It's a few times in the last 5-6 years you've seen it line up where you could just see it coming. And, Oregon was hosting Colorado a couple of years ago, and you could just see Dan Lanning's vein in his neck was going to get going, and they were going to have it for Colorado. This is one of those games. USC was jumping around. Lincoln Riley was on the sideline at the end of the Iowa game yelling victory, victory. I can't imagine what Oregon is talking about behind the scenes this week. It has to be all about, how good LA thinks it is and how good UCLA thinks they're back. I think Oregon's going to give Lincoln Riley and USC a rude awakening.
There's been a lot of buzz with Lincoln Riley down there, as if this is his last season. Are you hearing anything about where he would plan to go? To me, my first thought was NFL.
I think so, too. I think he's not ideally made for this college recruiting, NIL, transfer portal world. I think he's a play caller mostly. I think he knows that. He was looking for friends at Big Ten Media Day this last year. I think he was walking around the building looking for a friend. I mean, it was, the room had turned on him, and I think he saved this season. Their schedule wasn't particularly tough, but he saved this season. He's got some credibility. He's got some traction. I don't think it's sustainable at USC. There's a huge investment that they made with his general manager. They paid, Chad Bowden's getting $1 million. They hired a bunch of scouts. They're invested in a football facility, but I don't think that Lincoln Riley loves this part of football, this part of the job. I think he's been looking for probably a path out, and I think the NFL gives him that face-saving path. I also think if I'm USC, I'd like to move on from him and not owe him $80 million. And so I think, they gave him everything he needed to be successful this season. He's done it to a point. He arrives here with 2 games left in the regular season with a puncher's chance to get in the playoff. I think it's about as good as it gets for USC. And I expect too that he'd be interested in moving on and going somewhere else and calling plays in the NFL or becoming a head coach in the NFL if there's an opportunity. And he might be more built for it because you don't have to go recruit in the NFL. He's not a guy who's interested in going out even to the LA high schools and showing up. Like, he got massive criticism. He wasn't even driving 15 miles from his campus to go recruit. He wants to be the football coach and the CEO. They've been better with the structure that is the NFL-like structure that's currently there. Jen Cohen's done a good job as the AD, but he comes off as a child sometimes. He's not the grown-up that Kalen DeBoer was at Washington. And I kind of wonder if Jen Cohen has kind of, had to hold his hand and baby him a little bit. And, I just kind of think some successes might be good for everyone there.
2 stories that have come out in college football here in the last 24 hours that are just, it's a distraction, and I really don't understand what either parties are doing here. Let's start first with Lane Kiffin, then I want to get to Sam Leavitt, the quarterback at Arizona State, here in just a quick second. Lane Kiffin is he's just making it known to everyone that he is open and he'll take any job and he wants his name out there. No one likes to hear his name more in the public than Lane Kiffin. And he's not even hiding the fact that he wants to be openly courted by LSU and Florida. In fact, where they're just, these stories are becoming public, that his family's being flown from Gainesville to Baton Rouge to check out the campus. And now there's reports that, hey, Ole Miss has given him a deadline before the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State to make a decision. Are you going to stay with us or not? He's got all the resources in the world at Ole Miss, and I'm wondering what could LSU, and I know the easy answer is going to be money, and Florida going to offer him that trumps what Ole Miss is giving to him. And isn't he, I'm going to ask this question, but I know the answer to it. He's doing his players an absolute disservice right now. They're in the midst of a great season, have a chance to perhaps win the whole thing, and he's out there just glad-handing with LSU and Florida openly.
Yeah, he is. I mean, you knew what you were signing on for when you hired him, right? And because he's been messy everywhere he's been. Yeah. And this is no different. And I also think that, the way that he is acting makes it untenable for him to return there. I don't understand how you stay there. Wow. This is a tired act already for those fans at Mississippi and the trustees and the university. And, they have to be looking at him going, okay, wait, we gave you the opportunity to kind of resurrect yourself, and you've done great. Can we not both enjoy the fruits of the labor here? But it's not good enough. It's not good enough for him. He's a shark that needs to keep swimming. He will keep swimming. I think the idea of a deadline is great because it's going to derail that rivalry game. And you know how that ends. We see those games end up with a point spread that changes by 7 points before kickoff. And then we find out later, he accepted the job before they kicked off the game. We've seen it before and a couple times since, right? So this is going to come down with Lane Kiffin leaving Mississippi. There's just no way you stay there after you wipe your feet on the tablecloth after you've been brought into the house at Mississippi and taken, they took good care of him. Yeah. And in return, he slapped him in the face. So I feel like he already knows he's taken one of those jobs. And I think they know he's taking one of those jobs. And I just think it's a matter of which one he's going to take. And guess what? LSU, Florida, I hope you know who you're hiring because he's going to do the same thing to you when there's another opportunity.
And here's the thing about it. He's a good coach. He's certainly not a great coach that is being billed as a guy that is just like, standing all over college football, where he's just, you have to hire Lane Kiffin. Like, he's not that type of coach where I would just be rolling out the red carpet for.
There are jobs where you see it's just lined up. Like Kirby Smart had never been a head coach before. Georgia had all the resources in the world, and they hired somebody who saw it done at Alabama. Oregon, Dan Lanning had never been a head coach before. Oregon, he had no proof of performance. Oregon hired him. Why? Because Oregon knew it had the resources. It could give him the assistant coaches. This guy can recruit, and he knows winning will line it up. I don't see Lane Kiffin being a guy who walks in and does more with less. And so it must be that Florida and LSU go, hey, we know we have it all and Lane knows how to do it, but is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, why not just go find the next Dan Lanning, the next Kirby Smart, and line it up for success? But we all know that the donors and the boosters at LSU in particular, let's hold a mirror up for them. They know that you can put Ed Orgeron in that seat. You can put, whoever you want in that seat. If you have the talent and you have the structure, they can win. But you're going to pay Lane Kiffin $10, $12, $13 million a year. I don't know what they're going to do. And then he's going to end up leaving him too. I mean, it'll be for an NFL job or whatever he wants to do next when he gets bored.
Yeah. And then out of ASU, you got Kenny Dillingham, whose name's been brought up for everything. He's a homegrown guy. And he said all the right things. Listen, I want to stay there. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. This is my school. This is my alma mater. This is where I belong at ASU. And again, they're all kind of professional liars, so maybe he jumps at some point. But
he's now on the board, on the draft, on the odds board. He's the leading candidate at LSU in the casino. So
perfect.
There's a twist this morning, but I don't think it's real. I don't think he's going to LSU. If anything, his agent might be talking to LSU to help him get a better deal at Arizona State. I don't know, but I think Kenny Dillingham stays there. His quarterback, you're going to talk about this story, but his quarterback is a different story.
Well, yeah, and then that story comes out today. It's being shot down now by the brother of Sam Levitt, but On3, which is if people don't know what On3 is, it's a recruiting NIL transfer portal website, and they're reporting that Sam Levitt is going to hit the portal, and he is right now actively shopping himself across college football. And I get it. Listen, he sees what Cam Ward got at Miami. He sees the $3.4 million that John Mateer got at Oklahoma. Now, I love Johnny Football. Sam Levitt is 10 times better at quarterback than John Mateer, because this kid can throw. This kid is going to be the number 1 draft pick in the NFL when he comes out. That's how good he is. And so he's like, I can get paid a lot of money, like right now, before I even step foot on the NFL. But again, it comes back. It's like Lane Kiffin. Why is this coming out now? Your team is playing good. You're injured. It dumbfounds me how just tone deaf some of these guys can be.
The agents are working overtime right now. And what I think is happening with Sam Levitt is I think his agent is out testing the market. I think he's trying to figure out what could he get. That doesn't mean he's staying at ASU or leaving ASU. And I didn't love the reporting on this piece because, On3's got, a screenshot of a DM with Sam Levitt's brother. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Sam Levitt's brother is saying false report. He doesn't know what he's doing yet, which isn't exactly a denial.
It's not saying he's not looking, just he doesn't know what he's doing yet. Yeah, exactly right.
But this happens. I saw the Blazers do this years ago with Brandon Roy. They were going to give him a max contract, 5 years, $70 to $100 million, whatever it was. And before they did that, they shopped him. And I caught wind from other GMs in the NBA who said, hey, the Blazers are shopping Brandon Roy. And as I dug into it, what I realized was, they weren't actually intending to trade him. They just wanted to see if other teams viewed him as a max player before they extended him and gave him a max deal. I think Levitt and his agent are doing a little shopping right now. And of course, if somebody comes at him with $5 million, and I think you're going to see quarterbacks, the money's starting to get big and it's getting real. Somebody comes at him with $5 million. I think he goes back to ASU and says, hey, look, I've got this offer from, Texas. I really would love to stay here, but I got to do like John Mateer. I got to do what's best for myself. Mateer, $1 million at Washington State or $3 million at Oklahoma. That's not much of a decision. So I think there's some of that going on. I think the agents are driving it at this point. And, I had a coach tell me that the problem now is that the agents in college football are starting to act like the agents in the NBA, where they talk to a team and they go, hey, if you take this guy, I can get you another guy. And they're starting to become more and more powerful and influential behind the scenes. It's all the more reason that you need a general manager. You cannot have your head coach involved in this because you don't want to piss off an agent and have him go, I'm not sending you the left tackle or the defensive back either because you didn't pay for the quarterback.
I got a story for you that I'll pitch here, and I want you can follow it if you'd like. If you're like, I don't care, fine. Speaking of NIL agents and all, college football and all that, I want you to follow the story of the young man from California, high school basketball player, #1 recruit in the country, who just transferred to Rainier Beach High School in Seattle, Washington.
Awesome.
And I want you to investigate who his NIL agent is. It's Aaron Goodwin.
Oh, boy.
The Goodwin twins, who have many, many clients in the NBA.
Yeah.
Just so happens that Goodwin is also the agent for Jamal Crawford, who is a volunteer assistant coach.
Okay.
Rainier Beach.
You've just done the reporting.
Don't you dig? No, just dig into that.
You've done the reporting.
That's a fun little story. We kept you long. Sorry about that. Great stuff. What do you got? You got something coming down here shortly on the Oregon State job,
State's coaching search, among other things. Obviously, the Ducks and USC. And I find it interesting where Washington's where Washington is in that Big Ten tier. How does Pat Chun, the Washington AD, feel about that? What can he do to change it? Why would Washington ever sign that deal if they were getting $50 or $70 million less than the schools they're trying to compete against? There's a lot of questions there.
Great work. JohnCanzano.com. Radio show starts at 3, 7:50, the game down there in Portland. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.